to Rava. So we're going to start over there. Tanya Kavase de Rava. The Gemara brings a brisa Kavase that's like Rava. Rabbi Yehuda says, Lo yimivin delases kol ikr. They would not bring doors at all. And they shadaita shaltina gasalav, because the mind of the child is comfortable on top of it. Shema yetzi reishay, maybe he's going to stick out his head or one of his limbs. Vitami bekever atam, become tame with this kever of unknown, who knows who's buried in the ground, and now the kid is tame mace. Ella, what do you do? Mavin shvarim mitzrim, bring oxen from Mitzrayim. Shekresesein rechavis, that their bellies are wide. The hatinoikis yeshun al gabei, and the kids sit on top of them. The koises shall ever be den, and they have cups made out of stone in their hands. Igilu shilech. Once they reach the shilech spring, yardu, they get off. Umilum, they fill it up. Their cups, va'olu v'yashvu len al gabei, and they go back up and they sit themselves back onto the shore. That was the brisa, and that took care of a proof for Rava. Now we come back to our sugya and sukkah, knowing about Rabbi Yehuda. Ask the Gemara, v'harei mita. We have the bed in our Mishnah, the Yeshba Kama Greifim, which has many fists from the ground to the bed. Utznan, yet the Mishnah says, Rabbi Yehuda says, Noyig Mayinu, we were noyig, we were accustomed, we would sleep under a bed in front of Zakenim. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, why is it not oil? And therefore it's like you're not in the sukkah. This is a substantial amount of airspace. So the Gemara says, Shani Mita, Mita is different, a bed is different. It's meant to go on top of it. It's not viewed as a tent because its usage is all above. So then Shvarm Nami, the oxen also, by the case of the kids, how does it help to protect them? Legabana Asuyim. It's only meant to be on top. So it's meant to be on top. It's not a tent. A tent is only to protect what's underneath. It's only used on top, so therefore there should not be a tent to protect the kids. Ki Yasa Ravin, when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Amr Belazar, he said the name of Rabbi Belazar, Shani Shvarm, oxen are different. Hoyel sinsu meginim al arayim b'chamav ne'achama uvikshamim ne'akshamim. Since it protects the shepherds in the sunny season from the sun and in the rainy season from the rain, they have some usage. And the point of this Gemara is that there's some sort of usage, even though it's not the primary usage, as long as you have some usage under, that gives it the status of a tent. So the Gemara says, Yachi, if so, mitanami, the bed also. Hoyel megina al min olim v'sandalim shetachteh, protects the shoes and sandals that are underneath it. It's not mostly meant for protecting things underneath. Usually you sleep on the bed, but it has some sort of protection for things under the bed, so therefore it should be viewed as an oil. So Ella, the Gemara has to retract on this, and the Gemara has to say, you need something that's always like a tent. Not like once in a while you use it. It has to be really used as a tent. The Gemara has a very interesting answer. Amar Rava said, Shani Shvarim. The oxen are different than the bed. Their spine that's in their body is meant to protect over their internal organs, their inner things going on over there. And since it's always there, that's constantly that their bones are protecting their body, is viewed as a tent all the time. Unlike the bed, you're right, the bed you could store the shoes there once in a while, but that's just once in a while. It's generally meant to be used on top. The ox is always used all the time because its body is a natural tent, how Hashem made it. Where do you get such a concept from? Shenemar. It's a pasuk in Eve. Or ubasar tabisheni. With skin and flesh, we say to Hashem, you clothe me. Uvatsamas v'gidim tisechecheni. And with bones and sinews, you are a shelter for me. So you see that the bones are called a shelter, a schach, and therefore they have a din of oil at all times. This is where we got up to, and so far we're good. We're totally good. The mita, the reason why it's not a tent is because it's meant to be used on top. You find me the case of the shoes and the sandals. That's not the classic way to use a bed. That's not what it's meant for. So why is the ox considered oil? Because the ox is constantly always being used to protect its spine, and therefore it's considered a tent at all times. So far, so good. This is where we're up to. The Gemara has another answer to explain the difference between the case of the oxen and the case of the bed. And it's also going to change a little bit in what its initial thinking. V'bayis ema. If you want, v'bayis means that if you want ema, you can say like this. Reb Yehuda l'tameh. Reb Yehuda is going according to his reasoning. L'tameh means his reasoning. The Amar that says, there's a very famous shita of Reb Yehuda in the Gemara and Sukkah. And you know it mostly from the first parak, and you probably have heard it before, but the Gemara assumes you know it because we're in the second parak. That says, Sukkah diras keva be'inon. A sukkah, it needs to be diras keva. Sukkah diras keva. A sukkah needs to be a permanent dwelling. Be'inon needs. Be'inon means it needs. It needs to be a permanent dwelling. What does this mean? Stop over there for a second. We know that we live in a house, and Hashem tells us the mitzvah sukkah is to leave our house and go into a sukkah, because that's what Klal Yisrael did in the Midbar. Even though there was Anani HaKavod, the sukkah represents Anani HaKavod, and could be represents sukkahs itself. There's a question in the Tanoim, what our sukkahs represent? Sukkahs mamish, actual sukkahs, or the Anani HaKavod. But at the end of the day, we leave our homes and go into a sukkah. Is a sukkah supposed to be diras arai, which means a temporary dwelling? Is that what it's meant to be? Or is it meant to be a diras keva? It is outside your house, but it's more of a fixed dwelling. It's supposed to be a proper dwelling. So some Tanoim hold it's supposed to be temporary. The idea of it is a temporary dwelling. However, other Tanoim, like Rabbi Yehuda, hold, no, it could be, and it's a question if it says be'inan, it needs to be, but he pretty much means it could be. It could be more of a fixed dwelling. What is Rabbi Yehuda's famous case where he says this by? We know that if a sukkah, Yitzi, your sukkah was a nice tall geshmaka sukkah. If you have a sukkah that's 20 amas high, that's already like a house. Like, whoa, 20 amas high, you don't get such a big roof. So the Tanakh in the Mishnah in Sukkah, the first paragraph that says, that's possible. Why? You need to be a temporary dwelling, not this fancy, huge, tall sukkah. What? There are other parts to it in the first paragraph about sale, but if it's too big, then that's the reason why it's puzzle. Correct, but Yehuda says that it's okay because it has to be a sukkah has to be a diras keva binam. But I think the Gemara says because the other Madamar says it's puzzle because the sukkah diras arai. Am I wrong? There's a few reasons. I'm not holding the first paragraph, but one of them is that it's a diras arai. It's supposed to be a temporary dwelling, and this is way too big. But Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is it's totally fine because a sukkah could be, it says be'inon in the Gemara, and there's a mashayla about exactly what it means be'inon, but it could be, and it's okay if it's more of a fixed dwelling. Another example is how wide does it have to be? 7 by 7 tefachim. Some people hold it has to be a little bit larger. Some people say 3 walls are enough. Some people say 4 walls are enough. There's a whole question about how permanent could the sukkah be. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is that a sukkah is allowed to be more of a permanent dwelling. Okay? And that's these words. Rabbi Yehuda l'tamei. Rabbi Yehuda is going according to his own reasoning. The Amar that says, Sukkah diras keva be'inon. A sukkah needs to be and could be a fixed dwelling. Therefore what? V'havalei mita diras arai. What it comes out to him, v'havalei means, what it comes out to him is that the bed in the sukkah is a diras arai, is a temporary dwelling. No one's going to say the bed is meant to be this fixed dwelling to live underneath. It is a tent, but it's a temporary tent. The sukkah oil keva, while the sukkah is a fixed tent. It's more of a fixed tent. V'loy osi oil arai umevato oil keva. The temporary oil cannot come and negate, umevato negate, the oil keva, the fixed tent. Nachamo. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is that a sukkah is allowed to be and supposed to be, according to different Rishonim, the exact terminology of it, a sukkah is a diras keva, it's a permanent dwelling, it's more of an established thing. The bed is obviously a temporary dwelling. It's not meant to be a fixed dwelling to live underneath it. It doesn't make sense that if you're sleeping under a bed, that it's going to make it as if you're not in the overall sukkah. It's one thing if you have a fixed dwelling. An oil is an oil, but it's an oil arai.
Not a diras arai. Underneath the bed is not a dira. You're in an oil.
It's an oil arai. It's a diras arai, oil arai. It's a very, compared to the sukkah, it's total temporary.
I know an oil and a dira is 2 separate things. It's still an oil.
Right. It's still an oil, you're right. It has the oil. And at this point in the Gemara is assuming that the oil is a tent, that the meat is a tent, and that the shvarim are a tent. They're both a tent. The Gemara in this answers is saying they're both tents, but the difference is that the oil can't come and negate a bigger oil. That's what it is. The oil arai can't negate the oil keva. Okay? That is what the Gemara's answer is. So the Gemara asks, yeah.
Put a cow in the sukkah and sleep under the cow?
If you went under the cow in the sukkah, it's a good question. If you have a shor in the sukkah, would that, no, because the Gemara is falling off that reason. The Gemara is falling off probably that concept, that those type of things are not tents, I'm assuming.
A cow is not tent.
What?
A cow is not
No, it is a tent in and of itself. 1 second, sorry. It is a tent. It's a tent. It is a tent. It is an oil, and you're in the thing. Would be considered all right? He's using it as arai, even though the idea of it is
Why
keva.
would we get more keva than a bed?
Could be what? It's an oil, but it's not a deer, so it can't negate the overall bigger dira. Right, I know. Right. Donnie's making a good point. I don't know why, by the way. The Gemara changes words in the middle. I was wondering this. I tried to look it up. It said diras arai v'sukkah oil keva. V'leosi oil arai. Comes back to oil arai. It doesn't say diras arai. Like the words interchangeable with the words. Not sure why. However, it's a good question. I have to think about it a little bit more. If the shor would be in the sukkah, it's a good question. Would that negate the sukkah? In a way, it's a constant. See, the Gemara may be falling off its old answer about the bones. So it's more of an oil. It's arai-ish. It's arai-ish still. I don't know if it's such a keva. It could be more of an arai underneath it. It has a din of an oil, but it's still arai. It's still arai.
Always an oil also. No matter where you put it.
In the Gemara says the shar will have its own.
Right, the Gemara's falling off. The Gemara's not going with that answer right now. Yeah.
The more trying to differentiate now between a bed and a cow. He's saying the bed is a
They're both tents. They're both tents.
But one is a real tent. He's showing that animal is a real tent, and the bed is not, as you see in this case.
No, the bed is a tent also. Just when you're in a sukkah, it can't negate the bigger tent. It is a tent. The meat is a tent. The shor is a tent. They're both. But when you're in a sukkah, that's much harder. To negate something that's a lot more keva and more fixed, that's harder. So the Gemara has a question now. Rib Shimon. You have the Tana Rib Shimon. Now we know the Mishnah said, Rib Shimon said a story about Tavi. Rib Shimon's opinion, he holds, he's not like Rabbi Yehuda, he's like the Tana Kama, that a bed is a problem. But we know Rib Shimon, the Amr that says, earlier on in the Masechta Nami, he also says, Sukkah diras keva be'inon, that a sukkah needs to be a fixed dwelling. That's Reb Shimon's opinion. So v'asi oil arai umevato oil keva. He should have a problem. That how could the oil arai come ahead and negate the oil keva? Means Reb Shimon's opinion also is about sukkah diras keva, and he says it's a problem to sleep under the bed. Why? The oil arai, how could it come and be mevato the oil keva? How could it do that? We're just saying now, according to Yehuda, it's impossible to do such a thing. So Reb Shimon should have the same problem. And therefore, being under the bed in the sukkah should be good. Should be good according to Reb Shimon. So the Gemara answers, Baha pligi. In this they argue, by the way, in general, whenever you have parentheses in the Gemara, overall you skip it. I'm not overall. When it's in brackets, it's in. When it's parentheses, usually it's out. But the Gemara says, Baha pligi. In this they argue. You're right, it's a good point, but in this they argue. Mar Savar, one master holds. Asi oil arai umavata oil keva. Reb Shimon is the first person. He holds. That Mar is Reb Shimon. He holds the oil arai, the temporary oil, could come and negate the oil keva. He says a bed could come and negate the sukkah, and therefore if you sleep under the bed, you're not yaitse. Umar Savar, while the other master holds, and who's that? That's Rabbi Yehuda. That the temporary tent cannot come and negate the oil keva. So they both agree that a sukkah is a diras keva. They both agree. But Reb Shimon says that at the end of the day, an oil arai could be levato, an oil keva. You're under a bed, lamaisa. You're in a different zone. It's your own zone. But Rabbi Yehuda says no. It's can't have this little zone overtake the overall bigger sukkah. And therefore, your yotzer yeshiva sukkah sleeping under the bed. That is the two dots, and we're going to chazer that Gemara one more time just to bring out both answers. Going back to Ella Amar Rava, I want to bring out both answers again. Rava's opinion here is, to answer it up, is that the difference between a shor and a mita is that being used for a little bit as a mita, as a tent, it doesn't make you into a tent. It has to be something a lot more fixed. And therefore, Rava's way of getting out of it is, Amarava, Shani Shvarim, oxen are different. Since they're meant to protect the innards of them, Shenemar, like the pasuk says, or ubasar tabishin, you clothed me with flesh and skin, uvatzamas v'gidim v'seichacheni, and you covered me with bones and with sinews, and therefore the shor is totally different. The fact that it's always an oil, it always has a schach in its body, and therefore the kids are protected. The mita is not an oil; it's meant to be used on top. That's Rava's answer. V'ba'isema, if you want, you could say a whole different answer, and this answer is going with the premise that the mita and the shor are beds. They are tents. They are tents, and they're total tents. But Rabbi Yehuda letameh, Rabbi Yehuda is going according to his reasoning. The Amar that says, Sukkah diras keva binan. A sukkah needs to be a proper fixed dwelling. Therefore, v'havale mita diras are. What comes out to him is that the bed is a temporary dwelling. The sukkah oil keva, while the sukkah is a fixed dwelling. V'le'asi oil are. You can't have the temporary dwelling come umavata oil keva and negate the fixed tent. It doesn't work. And therefore, you could be under the bed in the sukkah and you're Yetzirah. Reb Shimon, the Tan in the Mishnah, argues on Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar that says, Nami sukkah diras keva bina. He also holds that a sukkah is a diras keva. So v'asi oil arai mavata oil keva. Does an oil arai temporary tent go and negate a fixed tent? Why, according to Reb Shimon, is it a problem being under the bed? Why would that negate the sukkah? The Gemara says, you're right, Baha Pligi, in this they argue. Mar Savar, Reb Shimon holds, Asi oil arai mavata oil keva, that the temporary tent, which is the bed, could be mavatal, the fixed tent, which is the sukkah. Umar Savar, another master holds, Loi Asi oil arai, the temporary tent cannot come, umavata oil keva, and negate the fixed tent. Stop over there.
On the bottom, right?